Hello and welcome once again to this week's News Roundup. I am joined this week by Leon Hurley, editor of officialplaystationmagazine.co.uk, and Dan Dawkins.
Hello.
Former editor of PSM3 and now on some special things.
Special projects, James.
Special projects. Coming up this week is full of the numbers 4 and 5. We've got some Battlefield 4 gameplay, some Assassin's Creed 4 gameplay, GTA 5 screenshots, finally Dan, some new GTA 5 screenshots, and Metal Gear Solid 5. So let's crack on. Monday saw Ubisoft release the first gameplay trailer for Assassin's Creed 4. So then guys, Assassin's Creed 4 gameplay trailer. Some of it looked current gen, I would suggest. There was possibly hints of next gen in there as well.
Do you know, I didn't even think about the gens. I was just looking at kind of getting.
You didn't think it. Oh my!
The thing
That's the first thing you're meant to think about, Leon.
It seemed to me like, is it an Assassin's Creed too far? Because it was like there were sharks, diving bells, there was all this stuff going on. It's like I remember when Assassin's Creed used to be a different thing. So I'm not sure if there's just so much stuff in it now. Whether it's kind of the brand's gone a bit off message.
Well, it looks like they've taken a lot of hints from Far Cry and how successful that was.
Yeah.
And like now there's like oceans in it and things to explore and sharks and so it's just pirates on an island, which is good.
Yeah, I guess it feels a little weird when you think about what Assassin's Creed was up until 3. There was a very clear kind of focus on the gameplay and the things you had to do, and then suddenly, yeah, there's diving and there's oceans, and they've managed to cram the kind of tree tech from 3 into this tropical island that now dense rainforest stuff. I'm not sure what to make of it, to be honest.
Dan, excited?
No.
No.
I mean, I'll be frank. I mean, I'm the man who hasn't liked Assassin's Creed since the original Assassin's Creed, where I liked the purity of the concept and what it represented almost as like the first game, certainly the first third-party game, to offer like the new visuals of the new gen, which is what PS3 was at the time.
It was the first one to do that animation, wasn't it? The first time you saw that blended animation, you couldn't quite believe it.
Oh, and the crowd scenes are incredible. And I really was seduced by that, but as the game began, I felt like it was slightly sort of bloated and pompous. And I know people loved it, and certainly, I just didn't stick with it. But I agree with, isn't it Patrice Desilets who said he thought Assassin's Creed was the best, and then Assassin's Creed 2 was considered critically the best, perhaps.
I think, I remember we did a feature on it years ago when it was first announced, and they sent us through all these diagrams of what the crowds were going to do and how all the stuff was going to work, and none of it appeared in the first game, but then appeared in the second game, where clearly they'd built the tech up enough that they could add in all the features. So I always liked the second game because it delivered on the promise that they sent to us when they went, here's all the stuff it's going to do. And then you got the game at the end that clearly they'd gone, let's just leave this out, we can't fit all this in, we haven't got time or money. Yeah. And then it turns up in 2, so I've always gone for 2.
What I find bizarre is that Assassin's Creed 3 was promised as a big reinvention, and it was, but straight away they've moved on from Connor, like he's been flushed away. That's really weird. Yeah. And it was an Assassin's Creed game that seemed to forget that it was about assassinations.
Yep.
Now, whether they've recovered that for 4, which we're told to believe they have with the terms of the creativity, but there's still this sense of, it's the game that is all games. In the scene in the new trailer where you see the jungle, they sort of deliberately go, voyage into uncharted new territory, hey? Yeah, and it's like, oh look, there we go, there's a little Drake reference. And to be fair, it does look really good. The footage is really good, swimming looks great, I love the idea of being pirates. It's just, something makes you a little bit sceptical about, whether jumping the shark's the right reference in terms of a seafaring game, I don't know, but, hopefully they can pull it off.
Yeah, the whole pirate thing was really exciting. The whole trailer, it was slightly confusing. Like, it was just like, it seemed weird. Like, the voiceover is totally different. We were discussing whether it was Finchy from The Office. Like, it sounds a lot like him. You go back and listen to that, and then
it's meant to be
Morgan Freeman, no thanks.
Bristolian, isn't he? Yeah. But the weird thing is, it doesn't. You watch the trailer and you kind of don't really get any idea of what it is you're sort of meant to be doing. They're kind of like, here's some Assassin's Creedy stuff, here's some shippy stuff, here's some stuff, and there's some stuff, and then there's some stuff over there. But they never at any point go, here's the thing that's tying it all together.
Yeah, there's no story hints. It's just like, here's all the stuff we've got coming up.
Yeah. And they're working on 5 as well already. Jade Raymond's been interviewed and said they're already working on a 5th one. So it does feel like they're just whacking them out.
That's what I want to know. I want to know there's another one coming before I even bought this one, having not finished the last 3. Yeah. That's definitely what I want.
Well, they were advertising 4, wasn't it? They had adverts up pretty much within a month of 3 coming out. Yeah. Like almost like, sorry about that one, and now this one.
Yeah, there's a thing at the end of the trailer which I was slightly, I don't want to say annoyed about, but it's like, already you can pre-order it, and if you pre-order it, you get 3 exclusive in-game missions.
What?
I know, exactly.
Amazing.
Like, and why? Like, those things, like, it's just paid for DLC again.
Yeah.
But it's already there, and you can't have it unless you buy the massive. Like, I think you can get it with all the pre-order editions, but the one that's on the end of the trailer is like the massive boat with him on. Like, they've already made all of the little things.
Yeah.
You're going to get the artwork.
Pre-order's a big business.
I know, but like it's March.
But if they can, as was shown with Assassin's Creed 3, if they can get people's opinion on their side early and get their money and so forth, then they've got the money, they've got the game, they've got the sales. As was proved when Assassin's 3 came out, and you had a lot of odd reviews that didn't match the scores, and a lot of people saying it wasn't very good, and people had already pre-ordered, going, I've already bought it.
Tuesday brought us even more gameplay, this time in the form of Battlefield 4 from EA. So, it looks absolutely fantastic. I was watching it earlier, just before we came down, and it's incredible.
I thought it looked lovely, but I did also feel the same way when I watched Battlefield 3. When they first showed that off, you were like, oh my god, it's incredible, I can't believe how good this looks. And then you played it and you're like,
Yeah, but you have to get the super PC, like the giant box, to make it look like that. Like, it's never going to look like that.
But not in terms of looks. I mean, I thought it was a fine looking game on PS3, but in terms of gameplay, it was quite sort of lacking. There was the AI was a bit woolly. The missions were a bit like, you just go there somewhere and shoot some people. The actual content didn't live up to the sort of visual spectacle, whether it's on PC or Xbox or whatever. The gameplay didn't deliver in the single player.
I think this is obviously a 17-minute version of like a highlights reel. I don't think those bits in the thing like all match up like that. Like they're not really different sections from the game. But I mean, visually and the gameplay in this does look a lot more refined, and like it's got some kind of direction.
And you can now, it looks like he's doing like orders to direct the team around, that's a new thing for Battlefield, isn't it?
As I said last week on the news, when I said Battlefield 4 info was coming, you would play a soldier with a gun and control your teammates. Huh?
Oh, James.
There we are.
How did that come about?
Well, I don't know. I plucked that out of the air.
Actually, the most impressive thing I thought of the trailer is at the end where the girl goes,
"You'll back me up, right?"
And I watched it go past, and I thought, why have they put a bit of live action in at the end? And I had to go in and freeze frame it and go, no, that's in-game engine.
Fooled you, Leon.
Yeah, but
new engine.
Something about that face when she just sort of turns around, she flashes past really quickly, but I thought it was live action, and I got really confused as to why there was one bit of live action in the tech demo.
Well, it did look really good, and I guess the new Frostbite 3 that it's built on, and we'll come on to the Fox engine later, but those two things seem to be like next year's games are going to look absolutely amazing, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, this for me, the Battlefield trailer typified everything that's interesting and ridiculous about folk on the internet. Where, rightly, I think a number of journalists stated, hey, for all the whiz and bang, the gameplay's pretty staid. It's quite familiar. There's a disconnect between the emotional intensity of the occasion and suddenly like idiot AI men waddling on to get shot in the brain and going down in two shots,
It was press F to cut off leg. That was the one everyone picked up on.
Yeah.
It was like, okay.
And then the sort of Deus Ex Machina, oh look, it's a taxi driver. How convenient. But that can maybe happen. Like that was like the least of my worries. So, overall, it looks amazing. Of course it looks amazing. The corridors look real. Yeah. But amazingly, like on one of the big game news sites, I looked at it, the first comment was, it looks rubbish and the graphics aren't even good. And you're like,
wow.
What do you want? What more can... It literally, like you say, made you think it was real. And that's no longer good enough.
I don't know.
Reality is no longer good enough.
But, hey, maybe reality isn't good enough because we spend all our time hiding from reality in video games.
But then complaining about it, that it's not real. Like, it's just a massive roundabout.
Maybe they want good graphics, but not grey, burnt out corridors. I wouldn't spend any of my actual life in those places.
No. I think that some of the opinions for Battlefield 4, I think what it's showing is that we're getting to a point now where people are wanting more from their games than run in a straight line and shoot everything you see along the way. So the basic mechanics of, say, a simple FPS, I mean, if you go back to like PS1 and PS2, there were certain games that were huge, so like top-down racers and platformers, beat-em-ups. There were certain games that were good because that was what the tech did well. And we're now approaching a point where the tech can do more interesting things than a corridor shooter. So people are looking at Battlefield and just kind of going, because we've been doing that sort of thing since Doom on PS1. The basic mechanics haven't really changed, and people want more.
Yeah, and if you've played a game like Bioshock Infinite, which I've started this week, and the way that sweeps you into its world and it's really intoxicating, it's detailed. You don't fire a gun for half an hour.
No.
And you're just absorbed in this sense of being almost like a tourist within a world that already existed. Not like a lot of games that do this sense of you know, the game world suddenly sprung into life like a film set because you've arrived.
Yeah.
You do feel like you've stumbled upon a living environment, and that's fascinating and that, you know, bewitching. And you compare that to this sense of, oh look, these men are moving around in front of you just for your pleasure, you know, they're like little pop-up targets for your enjoyment.
Yeah.
That doesn't connect anymore, however good the visuals. So I'm hoping that, you know, we are demanding more of our video games.
I mean, I played The Last of Us recently at PAX, and something I found quite interesting in that is... Sorry?
Big shot.
What? That's my job. I play big games at the fancy shows. Something that fascinated me was that every time, like, it's very minimal, very staid, very kind of nuanced, very grim, like Uncharted level of production, but more like sort of Children of Men and you know, The Road, that sort of thing. But what fascinated me was every time I walked past a door and the handle lit up to show I could interact with it, just ruined the moment. It just broke the sort of the experience. And even just calling up your little menu to pull up your guns and choose what you wanted broke the moment, because they'd made a game that was so sort of immersive and you were so sort of sold into that world that anything that happened that reminded you it was a game just ruined it almost. And I sort of didn't want any of the things popping up on screen because it just ruined it.
Wednesday saw Rockstar try and sneak out 10 new GTA 5 screenshots, but we caught them, Dan, for our new show, GTA 5, which you can subscribe by hitting the button up there. 10 new shots, shows off loads of new stuff, and actual new content to talk about.
Yeah, it was like, we've been running this weekly GTA 5 show on CVG's channel at GTA 5 o'clock on Twitter. It's been going really well, despite the fact we've had literally no new information for 3 months, which has been unbelievable. And it's almost become this running joke where we run on stage and throw some smoke and mirrors, and it's all a bit... So to actually have new shots was amazing and really exciting. Now, they weren't in themselves that rich with new info, but you could infer interesting things from them. You know, shots like, hey, it's a minigun, that was pretty obvious. But stuff I thought was more interesting, and again, this might be a fantasy concoction, but there was a shot near the end of a car with the edges of the shot had become slightly sepia and chrome-like and slightly faded out, and the tail lights of the car were sort of zigzaggy and neon. And it was a very stylized shot, almost like something you get on an Instagram sharing service. Now, my speculation is that Rockstar have given you a smartphone in GTA 5 and have already said it's a modern smartphone with all the capabilities that provides. Now, obviously, every new smartphone has a good camera and is connected to the internet, and they're building this enormous world full of detail. What better way to explore and share that world than with a camera you carry with you at all times and can take stylized shots that you can share and add filters to? And you could put it on some sort of website or network, you could rank and rate them. You know, we talked all about this on GTA 5 o'clock this week,
definitely.
amongst other things. But for me, that could be the headline, you know, hidden revelation of those screenshots.
What if there's like a full suite of apps as well? I mean, they
wow.
had like websites and stuff before in GTA 4. What if you actually have apps potentially with gameplay effects maybe that, you know, could show up things on the map or show off enemies or something, but customize your phone to have an effect in the game.
You could almost have like you have on your phone AR apps or like LAR or whatever it is. You could have, you know, phone apps that explain away the effect of being in a video game, which is ridiculous. But you know, like they won't do that. That's too meta for them. But you know, it's an interesting device.
And we know they've got like dynamic music in the game as well. So what better way to say that you've got music with you all the time than go, hey, there's an app on your phone that provides you with that music.
And imagine having an app on your phone. I'd pay for this in real life. If I had an app on my phone.
Music.
Yeah, when I did something really cool, played some badass music.
Like a little theme tune.
Yeah, Dad. That would be amazing.
Good, yeah, so for all the latest GTA 5 info and news, hit up our new show, GTA 5 o'clock, and we'll see you over there every Wednesday at 5. Thursday saw Hideo Kojima take to the stage at GDC and announce Metal Gear Solid 5, which, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, is now the Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes together make Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, they clarified it this morning. Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes is going to act as a sort of separate but joined prologue chapter. The implication was that it might be released as a sort of standalone product, possibly a digital product, that will act perhaps as a hub for, you know, maybe add-on DLC, who knows. But that's going to set the story for the Phantom Pain to pick up. Now, I suspect the Phantom Pain itself is only, and Kojima said this, effectively a tutorial for the main events of Metal Gear Solid 5. And I think that, you know, where the Phantom Pain picks up and drags you into the game, as we see at the end of the Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer, where we see, you know, what looks like Big Boss with a weird horn that maybe we'll talk about in a minute. And he's on a bike and he's got the Diamond Dogs logo.
He's just got a robot hand, which I only noticed recently. He's got like a red robot hand.
Yeah, it must be where the prosthetics come off and he's got a new arm. But I think then the main core of Metal Gear Solid 5 will be open world, set in Africa, and lead to the setup of Outer Heaven.
Well, Kojima said quite openly that in interview with Access, talking about what he wanted Ground Zeroes to be at the time. I'm guessing obviously Metal Gear Solid 5. He wanted to. He was talking about the sort of the infiltration element of a game. You know, you watch a film, there's all these different options, and you know, do you take a bike? Do you go on foot? Do you take a helicopter? You know, he wants to give everyone all of those options. So rather than a mission, just sort of say like Metal Gear Solid 3, where you just get the cutscene and you're at the start, and then you do the mission. He wants to give everyone that kind of how they get to the mission, whatever they want to do, whatever they sort of think is right. They want to give them that kind of ability.
Oh, well, that's interesting. So, I mean, again, I'll name drop. I spoke to Kojima quite recently. And, I asked, about, and he was saying, he obviously couldn't say, well, in Metal Gear Solid 5 between me and you, but he did say, in my new game, or in sort of, I don't know which way he said it, but he said, in my new game,
The thing I'm making.
I'm going to create the goal of realistic stealth. And he said, people who've been playing it genuinely feel exhausted when they play it. He said because it's all sort of progressing almost in real time. He said that people end up stumbling into the mountains in the middle of the night and getting lost. And then when it turns into daytime and they find like a base, they start panicking because all the soldiers have turned up and there's alert statuses. So he says like genuinely it's a grueling thing. And like Leon says, if there's multiple approaches, vehicles, that makes sense. And certainly what we saw of the Ground Zeroes trailer felt too constrained to truly offer that, possibly. Yeah. So we'll see. Maybe that will build out and become something else. But when he spoke about it at the Eurogamer Expo, he talked about how base building would be a key part of Ground Zeroes and how you could use possibly your mobile phone to build your base. Now, what you won't be building, I don't think, is the base that gets blown to smithereens in the Metal Gear Solid 5 trailer, which is your base, mother base from Peace Walker. So it's likely, I suspect, that the base you will be building will be in fact Outer Heaven, possibly in Africa, which is where it's supposed to be based.
Cool. So there's a lot of things that you've been saying there that people who haven't played any Metal Gear games might be quite confused about. Do you not think that having
most of it,
like Metal Gear Solid 5, like I mean, the Metal Gear series has become like a thing that is now quite inclusive, and like so if you haven't played any other games, I don't know if you can even play 5 and understand it.
This does feel, doesn't it, like an almost unapproachable kind of game to any sort of average casual kind of fan. I mean, I know a fair bit, and I'm struggling with some of what's going on. You know loads.
Yeah, but I've obsessed like basically 18 months into my life into soaking up every single micro detail, and every time I do it, I have to cross-reference what I've learned already. It's so dense. I don't think it matters. I mean, primarily, even if you looked at that trailer cold, it's just a cool open-world action game with a sort of psychic undertone. It looks almost like he's possibly retconning some of the timeline anyway, which I can't be sure about, but I'm going to investigate. And I think it doesn't matter. Bottom case, you play like a dude who's got one arm wielding a shotgun on the back of a horse, shooting a demon horse in the middle of a forest, and the graphics look amazing. Who doesn't want that? That looks sensational.
You've sold me, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. And Friday's news is some happy stuff. Bioshock Infinite is now the highest rated game of 2013. Due to you, I would assume?
Not me, no, Joel reviewed it for us. I gave it 10 out of 10.
It's 10 out of 10. Yeah, Metacritic, it's like the highest rated game ever. Do you think, I mean, obviously it's because it's a great game, but also I think the user scores are coming in quite high as well. Do you think that it's a reflection of the review scores, or is it everyone wants to like it because it's about life and making decisions and things?
I think Irrational have been very clever in the way they've marketed it, much the same way they did with Bioshock 1, where they sort of show off the sort of initial footage, let people kind of digest it for a little while and get excited about it, and then they just tease it out. So I think they're one of the few developers that are sort of in a position of power where they can turn around at the publisher and go, it's when we're ready, all right? As opposed to a publisher going, you need to hit this date, you need to do this thing. So they built the game they wanted to build, they put the things they wanted to build, put in it. And I think it shows as a sort of, a almost luxuriously kind of crafted experience, and that comes across, I guess, in the reviews and player experience.
Dan, you've been playing it. I've seen the beginning a few times. Everyone's been playing it in the office and stuff, and that first opening sort of vista is like incredible.
Yeah, it's like I started wobbling on about a minute ago. I think it's truly beautiful to the point where like I almost feel ashamed playing other games that like they haven't got that love and every brick feels crafted, every moment feels like it was there to be discovered. Like every time you go around a blind alley, there's always a little few coins waiting for you because they knew you'd go around that alley. And as I say, it's just that real sense of discovering a world and of journey, and you want to soak it up and feel it and enjoy it, and that's a really rare and beautiful thing. And I think that comes along honestly once every couple of years, and it's because of someone who's got a great creative vision like Ken Levine and his team. They've got time, they've got money, they've got budget, they've invested it, and it's not often the games on yearly cycles that produce something quite as special as this. Who knew putting a lot of effort in gets good results?
But that's good news for GTA, obviously. They've been going on that for ages, and it's already looking brilliant. So coming to the end of this generation, you think we've got I'd say 3 or 4 more brilliant games?
I think there could be a few surprises. I think what you'll find is they'll get, all sort of the A teams will be put onto PS4 and Xbox, and working on the big next gen projects, and you'll get a few guys that are rising up, ready to take charge of something, and they go, yeah, you can do a PS3 game, and maybe they won't be as pressured, or they'll have a bit more freedom because it's the end of a generation, and you'll get a few surprises tumbling out where somebody will get a break because they're sort of next in line, but get put on a current gen game, and they'll produce something amazing. Getting back to what Dan was saying, one of the things that's fascinated me when I've been wandering around Bioshock Infinite is none of the conversations you hear are filler. Like every time you walk near someone and they say something, it adds something to the story, or it adds something to the environment. There's none. You don't ever get anyone kind of just standing around saying nothing.
That's exactly that. It's the sense of a world that pre-exists, and you're there like a detective peeling back its mystery, and the game very judiciously and deliberately gives you layers of the onion all the time. And it's always feeding you little clues, little hints, and it's just it's amazing to find the world. It's better than saying, like, we've created this world, and if you want to read all about it, here's a 5,000 word text scroll that you can read in the menu. That's an awful way to do it. This is a much more inventive way to actually live and discover the world.
It's all in the game, isn't it? I walked along Battleship Beach, and a mother was scolding her child, kind of going, I thought I was raising a duke, don't turn out to be a dimwit. And I was like, okay, it must be just like colloquialism and stuff. And then you get to this alleyway, and they've got these machines, and it's how they indoctrinate the youth to sort of be... the dukes are the upstanding young boys of Columbia, and the dimwits are the ones who don't do things right, and just little things like that feed in. You sometimes find something a little later on, and you go, oh, so that's what that meant, and you feel like you've discovered it because you've made the connection, and it involves you much more in the narrative than just, like you say, a big scroll of text.
And it flatters your intelligence, and I think that's a nice trick, a nice sleight of hand trick.
Brilliant. So if you haven't bought Bioshock Infinite, go and get it now because it's brilliant. That's it for this week. Thanks to Leon and Dan for joining me. Hit the subscribe button right now to check out all of our shows and get all of our regular content, and we'll see you next week.